Good evening, everyone. I am your host and instructor, Laney Shaughnessy, and welcome to Spindle TV, your best source for CNC CAD/CAM training videos. Spindle TV is brought to you by Digital Woodcarver, inspiring your creativity and providing you with the tools to create your own unique masterpieces. Good evening, everyone.
Hello. One of these days I'll get that timing down right. How is everybody doing this evening? Welcome Jimmy, Joe, Tim, Wayne, Bob, Debbie. Debbie, I have a label coming for you. I'm sorry that it did not get out to you earlier. Doug P. Dennis. How are y'all doing? How is everybody tonight? Hey, Baron, how are you doing, sir? No, unfortunately, I have not shaven yet. I've been without water and everything for the last 4 days, so I've been showering at friends and families until my bathroom situation is corrected. And so I have not shaved. I'm roughing it. I'm looking like a wilderness man. Hey Bo, welcome. Everybody in the group, welcome Bo to the group. Bo is a new customer. Just getting his machine set up today and everything. I don't think he's carved a project yet. We just went through his orientation, so everybody give him a big old welcome. Okay, Debbie, I will. I'll make that note when I send that over you and everything. No, Dennis, I've got everything. I've got everything under control. I've got. I worked on it till about 3 a.m. last night, and then again this morning. So I had a crew over here helping me, and. So we're getting it underway. One more day. I think. I hope. Oh, all right. So the other night, last week, that other night, I put out a post asking you guys and girls to give me some topics. Give me some ideas of some of the things that you want to cover in a tutorial video. Stand by one moment. Miss Barron,
Yes.
could you please look out the window and see who pulled in? Okay, could you guys pause for a moment? Just talk amongst yourselves for a minute. I've got people pulling up in the property. Let me see who this is. All right. So sorry about that interruption, guys and girls. That was my crew. That I wasn't expecting them back this evening, but they are coming over to inspect what they got to do in the morning. Okay. So as I was saying, is we have a list of some of the projects that you guys and girls have been putting out recommendations. Welcome, RC. And so tonight I want to talk about 3. I looked through the list, and there's a lot of things that I'm going to be covering individually is in classes, kind of a one-on-one, like this project, that project, so on and so forth. But there are three fairly straightforward topics that I wanted to go over with y'all that we could actually do in one session and put a little variety in it. One is Stephen Allen had put out the request for, like, you know, talking about text on text with multiple species. When you have two layers of wood, maybe let's say walnut and maple, and when you carve that top text and get ready to carve that bottom text area, that one level is in maple, the other level is in walnut. And so it's a fairly straightforward process, and so I thought we would discuss that, create a small text-on-text project, and you know, show that because you know, it's all about the material and stuff. Number two, Angie had asked about putting up or cutting out letters and words and text and everything. Basically doing a profile cut and cutting those designs out. So almost like a monogram letter and things. And I know some of you have asked for the monogram text again. And so I'll get that. And then the third topic was going to be laser engraving. You know, either one of these designs we can cut or engrave, you know, with a laser or with the CNC, and I just want to talk about that for a little bit at the, you know, to kind of go over if we were laser engraving a sign. And the would that be a raised inlay? In a sense, it would be, Dennis. It would be. Now, Brian, where do we find these videos after they're live? After the live is complete, right here on Spindle TV, in the channel Spindle TV. In you know, www.youtube.com/Spindle TV, SPINDLE TV, no spaces, in this channel. So if you're subscribed to this channel, you can just pull up this channel, and the videos are in the video gallery on this channel on YouTube. RC, welcome, welcome David and everything. How are you guys doing? But pistol grips, Bob, that's a good topic too as well. You know, doing some pistol grips and all. Debbie Miller, if you're still around, didn't you make some pistol grips one time? Did you ever get through that project? Did you ever make those, or was that something you were attempting and never got done? Let me know how that went for you, the pistol grips and stuff. And yes, so you did. No, wait. Yes to the topic of pistol grips, or yes, you made some, Debbie? Let me see. Let me know that. Bob, how many lasers have I sold yet? Oh my goodness. 30? Somewhere around there, I believe. 30? Maybe more. I'm not sure. There, it's up there. So, a Euchre scoreboard. No, David, that's awesome. I love playing Euchre. That we could definitely talk about. That could definitely be a cool class, because it's a very nice looking project. You know, there's a lot of different ways to lay it out and everything, but it's a nice looking project. A Euchre scoreboard. I know that. Over the last couple of days, I've been working with a new customer, Alan Feldman, and we were making a folding cribbage board for him and things, and you know, that turned out very nicely as well. But a Euchre scoreboard, absolutely. Now, for you ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get off of my pretty mug here in just a minute, but we're just sitting here having a discussion for a second. Let's see here. Wood Euchre. Let's see what we got here as far as images are concerned. So let's switch over off of my ugly mug for a minute, and let's get inspired here for a second before we get into the help. And there's Is Euchre an American game? It's a card game. Yes, Bob, it is. Baron, thank you, or Alan, thank you very much. Dennis is a great DWC owner and has some cool stuff and knows as far as well. He has helped me tremendously. Yeah, Dennis has been phenomenal. And as a matter of fact, Dennis, I haven't had a chance to look at the Facebook group, but I want to kind of catch myself up on posts. Somebody had mentioned out to me today that you might be down and out or something, or need a dust collection system or something like that. And if there's anything that I can do to help, let me get caught up. Let me get past this class. I'll get into the Facebook group and see what I can read and find out. As far as I don't know the backstory or anything, but we'll see what we can do. But let's no, don't Google Euchre. Let me do that for you, because let's switch off of my ugly mug for a minute and let's take a look at get some Euchre inspiration here. All right. So what you're looking at is some different types of wooden Euchre boards. Euchre is a card game. It is it can be played in singles. It can be played as partners. I used to play in Euchre tournaments, and believe it or not, they have Euchre down here in the South, Dave. But your scoreboards can be very simplistic, where it's a single panel. You can get more advanced to where it's where it's an actual little box where you got the scoreboard on the top and the cards and everything on the inside. There is just a lot of fun things that you can do with it. Here's another, that's a little photo. Let's get to the big photos. That's a little photo. That's going, there we go. Some nice little, projects and things, with Euchre and all. And, it's a fun game. It's a cool little card game. Pretty good. You guys, if you don't play it, look it up and look at the rules of Euchre, and it's a fun game to play, for sure. But games, when we're talking about game boards and things, there's aggravation games. Which we did. We did an aggravation game in game night way back when with those files. But you've got cribbage. You've got, Euchre. You've got so many different games. Checkers, chess, all of the good stuff. I'm sorry, or Battleship, any of that stuff. You can have fun with it. But with your Euchre boards, you can, and see these, these boards. These are very, they're printed. Why do we print them when we can carve them in, that kind of thing. We have a CNC. We can do all that stuff. But anyway, so a Euchre board, that's a great, very simple class, Dave. Very, very simple class. And it's a great class that we could definitely do for, maybe we'll have another game night, and we'll make, since it's such a simplistic board to make, maybe we'll have another game night, and we'll make a couple of different other boards than from what we did on the first game night. There you go, Wayne. Wayne's a Euchre player. Bob Hill. Now, Dave, someone else is going to have, someone that knows the Euchre game a little bit more involved. Could you combine a Euchre and a cribbage board? It's two completely different card games. But your cribbage board, those path on the outside, your tracks and everything. In the inside of that track could be a Euchre board, or maybe double-sided. One side is cribbage, the other side is Euchre. You know what I mean? A double-sided project. So, absolutely probably could combine it in that way. Game boards and things are really fun to make. They're also great for gifts. They're great for selling. All of that stuff. Now, tonight, we're going to jump in feet first, and we're going to talk about text on text, and we're going to then go into profile cutting letters and all. We'll make we'll show making cutting out words and things, and what you got to consider and look at and think about when it comes to your fonts and stuff. We will look at the laser engraver, what to when we're working with our laser engraver stuff. So those are the three things that I want to cover tonight, and we'll jump right in. So let's get off my ugly mug one more time, and let's go over to our Vectic VCarve Pro. I'm going to be demonstrating in tonight. Everything that we're going to be doing tonight can be done in Vectic VCarve Pro, desktop, and Aspire. Okay. So tonight we're going to create a new file. This is going to be a single-sided job. We're going to start off with our text on text, and we're going to create a sign. We're going to go, let's go with a 20-inch board. That is, I want this, for this sign, I typically like long signs and everything, but I want to be a little bit more pleasing. And I want to look at the golden ratio. I'm going to challenge you guys a little bit of mathematics here. We're going to go with the golden ratio, and the golden ratio is a very pleasant rectangular shape that's been around for centuries. There's an equation. You multiply your width or your height by 1.618 to get your golden ratio. But I'm going to create a little bit of a different size here. So let's go with our 20, and let's see here. Let me think. I want an 8 1/4 inch board. I want it 3/4 of an inch thick. I'm going to start off with 20, but let's see where the golden ratio falls in with this. So I'm going to grab a rectangle tool. Again, this is going to be a little bit of a challenging, challenge for you guys. We're going to draw a rectangle, and that rectangle is going to be 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 square. Okay, 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 square. Now I'm going to drag that rectangle over by grabbing on the line. I'm in transform mode by double clicking on my design. I'm going to put my mouse right over that line, and I'm going to snap it to the edge of my board. Okay. Now I'm going to take a line tool here, my line tool, and if I move my mouse along the bottom vector of that rectangle, when I find that center point, my cursor is going to change. You'll see that slash in there on that cursor, letting me know that I'm at my midpoint. So I'm going to snap to that midpoint and snap that line there. And I'm going to drag, and I'm going to snap to this upper corner up here. Alright. Alright. Now I want to pivot this on its axis at this lower point here. So I'm going to select on my line, my diagonal line here, and I want to open the rotate tool so the pivot point will open. And oops, not the mirror tool, the rotate tool. So let's go in here and rotate, not mirror. There we go. You see that pivot point right off the center, that double circle. Let's zoom in on that. That is the pivot point. Well, if I grab that pivot point, holding down my left mouse button, I can move it, and I'm going to snap to this end of the line with that pivot point. Now as I rotate my line, I'm pivoting off that pivot point. Okay? And so I'm going to come down, and I'm going to come straight across. Alright, now that I'm straight across, I'm going to take my rectangle here, and I'm going to drag that rectangle out. And just so you can see the line, so you can see this, I'm going to move that line up a couple of bit just so you can see it there. I'm going to double click on my rectangle here, and I'm going to drag this line out. And, oops, not my whole rectangle. Let's undo. Control Z for the undo key. I'm going to drag my line out here, and I'm going to snap it to the end of that line on my rectangle. Okay? Alright. Now on the size of that rectangle there, that rectangle size is 8 1/4 by 13.37 or 3/474. This rectangular shape is pleasing to the eye. So it would fall within the golden ratio. Okay, and how you determine that is if we take from the midpoint and we tilt that out, that line should extend to the end of the board. Did that confuse you? Hopefully. So if I was making a sign, then I would make a sign that is 13.75. Let's round it down a little bit. And center. Let's delete that out now. And so this would be a sign or a design that would be, you know, pleasing to the eye. And of course, if we were going longer, we could go wider and everything. But we're going to work with this. The golden ratio. Alright. Alright, so for our text-on-text design, I'm going to open up the rectangle tool. And I'm going to draw out a border from one corner to the next. I'm going to holding down my left mouse button and snapping to that top corner and dragging to the opposite corner here. I'm going to offset that rectangle inward 1 inch. I'm going to create sharp corners, and I want to select the new boundary. There we go. Alright. Now, while that boundary is selected, I'm going to open up my draw text within a vector boundary. And by the way, can you guys and girls, can you see my cursor? Let me know if you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse where I'm pointing? Let me know. If not, I will see if I can change that setting. Okay, you cannot see my cursor. Alright, so let's go in and stand by and let me create a shot where you can see my cursor. So hang tight with me. You guys drink while I just said stand by. And alright, we're going to display the cursor. We're going to select that monitor. Alright. Almost there. Almost there, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen of all ages. You're going to see a green screen as I'm doing this. Excuse me. All right, so almost there, guys and girls. All right, let me know as we transition over. Can you, ladies and gentlemen, can you see my mouse now? And if so, can you see my mouse moving? Let me know as we transition over if you can see my mouse moving, because to me it looks like it's stuck. But let me know if you should see my cursor going in a circle in the XY0 position in the center of my board. Alright, so Dave, it's not moving, correct? It's staying stationary in one area? Okay. Alright. So I told the program to display the cursor. Well, that was nice of it to display the cursor, but I'd like a little bit of cursor action. So we were going to let's try this again. Stand by 1 second. We'll get it to turn that old cursor on. Show cursor. Capture audio. Alright, let's see how we did. It looks like we have cursor movement. It looks like we are seeing things go. Another sip. Shot, shot, shot. I've got to come up with another word for hold on, please, besides stand by, because you guys are going to be intoxicated if we keep this up. I'll turn you into a bunch of alcoholic carvers. All right. Now, I got to be careful because some of the new people think we're drinkers or something. We probably are, but no, because that stems back from Dennis from a long time ago, ladies and gentlemen. And every time I say stand by, they decided to turn it into a drinking game. And because I say it a lot, evidently. It's kind of their way of letting me know that I say that quite a bit. All right. So now, hopefully, we'll get some cursor movement going on here. Let's make sure that we are good to go. And let's make sure that we have audio and everything. All right, so where we were before I continued was, before I interrupted myself, is while I have this boundary selected, I want to come over to the text, draw text within a vector box object. And what that does for me, if I draw text within a vector box while that boundary is selected, it's going to restrain or restrict my text to that. And you can see in the bounding box dimensions, it put in my 11 3/4 by 6 1/4 bounding box here, my rectangle, my border, whatever you want to call it at this point. And now as I write something in, I can kind of I can manipulate it within this box. And so if we were coming in and you know, doing and now I can say, let's pick a font. So I'm going to come down and I want to pick kind of a bold font. I want a nice bold font because again, I'm going to be using a V-bit for this. I want this to look good and everything. So I want to make sure that my font is nice and bold. So let's go to our Rockwell, the R's here. There we go. We got Rowdy. We don't want Rowdy. We want Rockwell. Extra bold. And I want to keep normal margins around my text, but I want to stretch the text characters vertically as well as horizontally. I want it to stretch it out to this box as much as possible, but at the same time maintain normal margins. So I'm going to go ahead and click apply, and so that will kind of contour and stretch out my text to fit within that box with normal margins. Now, if I were using no margins and applied that, then it would stretch it out to my full box, you know, dimensions and everything. So I'm going to go normal margins there. All right. Now that I have the top text or the one layer of text created, I'm going to come in and use my regular text tool this time, my regular text tool, my draw text tool, and we're going to put in some other text. So and for this, I want a little bit more of a decorative, you know, font. So I'm going to try a mono type cursiva for this. And I want it to give it a little bit of boldness. And I want a text height of about 2 inches. Let's click apply. All right. Well, the 2 inches kind of stretches me out a little bit. And so let's go with 2 lines. Let's see what that looks like. And let's narrow down the size a little bit. Cut it in half a little. All right. Now I'm at a 1 inch high text, but I do want to stretch it out just a little bit more, give myself a little bit more height and everything. We'll go with something like that. So now with a text on text design, we want to get in and we want to create some layers. Now the software, when I started the program, it created a default layer for me, layer 1. We're going to right click and we're going to rename this layer original. ORIGANI. Okay, original layer. So that way we know it's original layer. Layer. There we go. Now we also want to create 2 additional layers. The first one is going to be called top text. The second one is going to be called bottom text. All right. Now, in my original layer, I want to take my bottom text and my border, and I want to right click and I want to move, or not move, I'm sorry, copy to that top or that bottom text layer. My border and bottom text, I want to copy to that bottom text layer. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to turn that bottom text layer light bulb off, that visibility, hide that for a moment. And now I want to select my border and my top text here, and I want to right click and make a copy of that to that top text layer. And again, turn that visibility off. My original layer is going to stay intact as is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that layer off. And now if I look at my top text, I've got a border with the top text. My bottom text, I have the border with the bottom text. Now, let's take a look at our top text here and let's see if there's anything that we've got to clean up. So on the bottom text here, the only thing I've got to clean up is I have an overlapping line on the G right here. We cannot have any intersecting or overlapping lines, and so therefore we want to remove those. So let's look and see if there's anything else, any other issue areas. And it looks to be that the G is going to be my only issue. So what I want to do first off is this is a text object. And so I need, in order to be able to work with these vectors and do my editing, I need to be able to turn that from a text object into a curved object, a vector object, a curved object. So that's the, under the Create Vectors menu, it's the Convert to Curves tool. Now, notice what I just did. Notice how as soon as I clicked on Convert to Curves, all this stuff popped up in there. That's because I made the mistake, and when I came in to edit that top text, I did not have that layer active. We need to click on that top text layer because that's what we're working in to make it active, and you should be able to see the word top text up here. Otherwise, any changes we make to this, it's going to throw it right in to that active layer, which is what it did. It threw it into that layer 1, that original layer, and we don't want that. So one more time, with the correct layer active, I want to come into the Convert to Curves tool, and I want to convert this text to a curve, meaning that all of these vectors are individual. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we could edit this G a couple of ways. One, we could come in and use our interactive trim tool, and we could just trim away that loop there. Number two, we can go into node editing on this G, and we can adjust these two lines. Okay, we can adjust these lines. So if I were to, let's say I want to adjust these things, if I grab these nodes here, all except for this one and this one, and I use my up arrow key, I can start to, oops, there's one other one that I don't want. Bear with me a second, let's zoom in there. I do not want, holding my shift key, I don't want that one selected or that one selected. I just want the nodes for this line. So if I use my up arrow key, we can start to pull that curve out. And then I can grab my anchor here and just swing this over to the other side to get rid of that overlap. Okay? Either way you want to do it. If you want that nice little gouge in there for the G, and you don't want to trim away that overlap, then you can adjust the nodes to move those lines. All we did was move this line upward so that it's no longer overlapping this lower line. Alright. Okay, so we're going to leave that as it is. Now I want to make sure that I go back into my normal selection mode. I can click on this icon here, or I can hit the escape key on my keyboard. And I want to bring and select this text here and regroup it. Now the group key is, the group button is under edit groups, the fourth icon. Or also we can use the shortcut code G, the letter G on the keyboard. Alright, so we're going to group that back together. Now that this text is edited, it's ready to be, moved down to the lower layer when we're ready, but we're not quite ready yet because we need to come in and we need to turn that layer off, and we need to do some editing on the bottom text here. Now because I'm going to be using a V-bit, I'm going to be, in my case, I'm going to be using a 60-degree V-bit. This might even look good as a 90-degree V-bit as well. But I'm going to be using a 60-degree V-bit for this. So what I need to do is I need to figure out what my offset distance is from the point of that bit to whatever depth of cut that I'm going to be cutting to. What I mean by that is if we come in here and if I draw a bit out, let's draw a 60. Let's get to that 60 inches, 60 degrees. Let's pull this 60. I'm going to come in and draw another line. I'm going to snap to the end of my bit and come straight out. Now, is the R and N too close together? We'll take a look at that, Dave. We'll see what that looks like when we'll go back into that before we make a copy and see if we need to edit or change it. You're getting buffering, everybody. Are we still getting buffering? Are we good to go? Where are we at here, guys? We can edit the spacing after we convert to curves. We just won't use the edit text spacing tool. And I'll show you how I would approach that. Let's first come in here and let's get our offset distance measurement, and then we'll go back and revisit layer 1. So on this line, this is a representation of my V-bit sitting on the top of the board. Okay? So use your imagination. The tip of my bit sitting on the top of my board. Well, if I'm going to be cutting this text, let's say I want this text to be 1/8 of an inch tall and 1/8 of an inch tall. Well, that's, for a total depth of cut of 1/4 of an inch. Or I could do, 3/16 and 3/16 for a total cut of 3/8. Well, I need to know how tall I want my text, and I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch. And so if I select this here, and I'm going to come into my Move tool under Transform Objects, and relative to its position on that line, I want to move it on the y-axis upward, so it'll be a positive number, 0.125. When I click Apply, this will now represent my 60-degree V-bit, cutting 1/8 of an inch into my board. Well, I need to know what the dimension is, what the distance is from the tip of the bit to this intersection, that offset distance horizontally. And so if I look here, that distance is 0.0722. 0.0722. Alright. We might be getting buffering because of that little cursor, show cursor tool. I'm not sure why. I don't know if we're getting buffering because of that, but hopefully not. Hopefully you guys and girls are not having to suffer through that. My stream looks to be okay. If this is for a 60-degree bit, the offset will be different for a 90-degree. Absolutely. So if we were to draw a 90-degree V-bit, if I were to move that line relative to its position, that 1/8 of an inch, that offset distance would be 0.125, 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, I know, guys and girls, I can go in and create another shot and turn that cursor off, but I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Let's see if I can close some additional files down. Bear with me a second. Let's see if I can relieve some resources. So let's close a couple of windows. Yes, I want to save the changes to the keystone. Stand by while I close a couple of my unnecessary windows. Alright, let's try this a different way. Close all windows. Stand by. We're going to try to relieve up some of the mirror. You're welcome, Jerry. I'm still working on it, Jerry. I will get the rest of that keystone to you. I need to talk with you on that, and bear with me a second. Come on. Okay. While we're in here looking at things, ladies and gentlemen, with other than my ugly mug, pretty soon the step calculator for the 4th axis will be released. The step calculator for the 4th axis will be released for you guys and girls to have a 4th axis. And I've been using the Excel spreadsheet. This will be released shortly to you. It's part of the companion software package, but I'll be releasing it as an individual item until the companion software is bundled together. All that wonderful stuff. All right. Hopefully this will smooth things out, relieving some of that memory processor, whatever it is. All those programs were taken up. Okay. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so 0.125 would be the offset distance and everything for a 90-degree bit. So it would vary, you know, it's going to vary depending on the bit. Now, we are using a 60-degree V-bit here, and so that 0.0722 is my magic number. That's what I need to offset my text, okay? So I'm going to convert my text to a curve. I'm going to offset it inward 0.0722. I want to delete the original. I do not want to create sharp corners on this offset, and I want to select the new. So I'm going to click offset and bring that in. Now, if you do this step in any part of your design, any part of your font disappears, gets deleted, or what have you, you're missing a leg or something, then you cannot use that font for this type of text-on-text V-carve tool, design. All right, that's why I use a bold font, because I'm going to be offsetting it inward. Now, of course, the text will not be carving this skinny, funky-looking text. It's going to carve full size, but we have to offset it fully because that angle cut coming from the bottom of our board all the way up to the top of our letters is going to have that nice, smooth angle cut from top to bottom. All right, I don't want this to get into a text-by-text discussion. We'll talk about it more later, but let's move this up out of the way. Now that we have this bottom text offset and we have it grouped back together, let's go back and revisit the top text. So the R and the N, Typically, no, you would not space them apart. That's how they come. But if you wanted to, then we could. Would we do this before we convert text to curves? Yeah, it would be much easier to do so. But can we do it after it's been converted to curves? Absolutely. So, we're going to space. We're going to put a little space between the R and the N and the E and the Y just to show you this process. Maybe even a little space between the N and the S. So here we go. We're going to ungroup this text, and once again, make sure that you're working in the proper layers. So I'm going to undo that action and turn that bottom text layer off. Make sure you're working in the proper layer. So, all right, one more time. We're going to ungroup this. I'm going to go ahead and select my text from the in out part, and I'm going to hold down my control key for micro movements, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. If you don't hold the control key down, then you get bigger movements. You know? So if I go back 1, 2, 3, and I go holding the control key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is where we started. If I didn't want to hold the control key down, I could go 1, 2. Put a little space in there. One, two. 1, 2. Whatever the case may be. However you want to space that apart. Now that I've done that, I want to select all of this. And I want to go into the alignment tool and make sure that it is still centered. You know, not that much. Centered this way, the first icon. There we go. Alright. Now I want to go ahead and I want to group this back together. And now the text will be ready to copy to the bottom text layer. Okay. All right, let's turn off our top text layer. Let's turn our bottom text layer on. Let's make sure we click on the text, bottom text, make a highlight, make it an active layer. And now we have two groups of text, our home and where our journey begins. Okay. On the bottom text layer, we are going to select home and we are going to select where our journey begins. And we are going to weld, using the weld tool under our edit objects, we are going to weld these objects together. What this does for me, the reason why we weld this together is we have to create that outline for when our router bit is coming and carving this bottom depth, that it doesn't carve all of this material away where our top text is going to be sitting. I need those outlines. I need that wood there. I need that meat for where my top text is going to be sitting. If we turn the top text layer back on, you see where the top text, when it's not sitting on the big letters, it's going to be out here floating. So it needs some meat to sit on. Okay. Now that we've done that, we are going to open and turn on both layers, top and bottom text. The reason why we're going to do this, and you guys and girls have not seen this before, well, you probably know how to do this, but this is a whole new step from the last text on text class that I taught. We are going to turn on both layers to make them visible, because we are going to be associating the toolpath with the layer that our text and stuff is on. Now stand by. I don't know if you guys are trying to get my attention by texting me in things, but I hear my phone going off. Okay, so those are just messages letting me know some other things. Okay, now what I was talking about, we are associating a layer with our toolpath. Normally, you know, the first time I taught you guys and girls is we would have come in here and we would have turned off the bottom text. We would have come in and created the V-carve toolpath and selected our text and our border. And then we would have created that first toolpath. Once we did that, we would come over here and we would turn that off and turn that on. We would select our layers. Whoops. Let's group that together. We would select our text and our border, and we would create that second toolpath. Well, rather than doing those steps, all those steps, we are going to turn both of these layers on. And in the toolpath, we are going to, instead of doing a vector selection manually, we are going to use the selector tool to associate a toolpath with a particular layer. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. From the first step, from 0, the top of our board, we're going to cut down a 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch. That's how tall I want my text to be. We're going to use a 60-degree V-bit for this with our 60-degree V-bit. That's what we created our offset on and everything. We're going to be using a flat area clearance tool. All that area, all this flat area around here, we're going to use a flat area clearance tool to clear that out. And that flat area clearance tool, by clicking on select, we're going to go in and choose that flat area tool, and it's going to be our 1/8 inch end mill. Now we are going to come down and we are going to hit the selector tool, and we are going to associate, and we want the selection filter to choose all open and closed vectors, all closed vectors, and we want to associate it with the layer of our top text. Now notice what happened when I did that. When I checked off the box top text, it automatically selected the border and the top text. Okay, everything that was on that layer. I'm going to close that tool now, and I'm going to call this top text. And I'm going to calculate that toolpath. Okay, if we preview that cut, let's try that again. If we preview that cut, ta-da! Will I update the PDF file to incorporate the association step? I can add an addendum to the PDF to talk about the association step. Let's turn off that bright orange color. I will add an addendum to that to talk about the association of a toolpath. Alright, so we've got our top text in here. For you new guys and girls, when you're looking at a preview, all the areas where our pocket cut, that 1/8 inch end mill, was carving, but that 1/8 inch end mill could not fit in between these areas. So for the flat areas where the bit could not fit, then the V-bit took over to flatten that area out. Now this is an exaggeration, somewhat of an exaggeration, showing the tool marks of where that V-bit is. It actually does a pretty decent job about flattening that area out, but you will, if you really inspected it closely, you will see small ridges where that V-bit flattens that area out, but not too noticeable. Not as noticeable as it is here. Alright, so now we're going to close this tool and we're going to come into that V-carve toolpath again. This time we're going to go from 0 to 1/4 of an inch. Full depth of cut, 1/8 of an inch plus 1/8 of an inch is 1/4 of an inch. We're going to go the full depth of cut with the same tools. But this time we're going to open up our selector and we are going to associate with the toolpath all of the vectors that are on the bottom text layer. Okay? If we went into the 2D view, you would see that all the bottom text and its boundary are selected. Alright? Alright, so we are going to call this bottom text. And by the way, notice the manual has selected to automatic now, has changed to automatic. And we're going to hit calculate. Alright, there were 2 open vectors that were identified. Those open vectors are going to be ignored. Those open vectors, if you look at the top of my screen, That is the line and that V bit, okay? Those are open vectors, and so because that is on that layer and I'm associating this toolpath with that layer, it has selected them, but they are going to be ignored because they're open vectors. So I'm going to click OK. And now we're going to go in and let's preview that toolpath. Alright, so now we have our home sign where our journey begins. You know, our text on text, if we take a look at it here. Okay. Alright. Now let's say I want to add some color to this. Let's say I was going to be, you know, let's do some painting here. You select on the toolpath that you want to add color to, choose your toolpath color, and let's say I want to do a nice little, you know, maroon. Let's turn those toolpath lines off. Let's add a little color to that and make this look a little bit more. Oops, not that one. Wrong toolpath. That should be that one. Okay, there we go. You know, whatever the case may be. Okay, Sarah. All right. So we've got our text on text. Now, what are the advantages? What are the advantages to associating a toolpath with a layer? Well, let's talk about that just real quick before we move on to the next topic. Let's stop for a minute and let's see what we've got here. I have a question at this time. All right, Dennis, please ask your question. Someone else, where are the text layers in Aspire? Never finished 2005. What version of Aspire do you have? What version of Aspire do you have? 8, 8.5, 9, or older? You will either see your layers box. You're going to see your layers box in the tabs down below to the right over here. Of course, you can get to your layers here. Or you will see that layer drop down box in over here on the left, right above the Create Vectors menu in 8 or 8.5. In version 9, that box has moved, and that whole row, all the icons that used to be over on the left here for our 2D view control, have now moved up to what's called the view bar. And the layer box here we can also access here as well. So we can access it from our view bar or from our layers tab below. Okay. Alright, so in 9 you will find it up here. Alright. Okay. Now, Dennis's question, on your bottom layer, would it save time cutting if your start depth was 1/4 of an inch with a flat depth of 0.25? We cannot do that. If we were, Dennis, if we were doing a straight pocket, then yes. If we were doing a straight pocket cut, meaning, let's create those two toolpaths so you can see what I'm referring to. If I create a pocket cut with a start depth of 0 with a cut depth of 0.125, and I'm going to use my 1/8 inch end mill for this. And I have a, we'll call this top pocket, just so we know what it is. If I associate all of the toolpaths with that top text and calculate that toolpath, and then when I come in here to do the next pocket toolpath, now I could go starting at 0.125, cutting down another 0.125 for a total of 0.25, I can do this when I'm doing a straight pocket. Okay? And I'll explain to you why we cannot do it when we're doing a V carve. A V carve. Okay? Let's come in here and let's reset our preview. Let's preview those two pocket cuts. Preview the visible toolpaths. The reason why we can't do this is because our V carve. Now, of course, let's talk about it while we're actually viewing it. All right. So when we're doing this as a straight pocket, we can start, go from 0 to 1/4 of an inch, or 1/8 of an inch, sorry. And then on the next layer, that bottom, from 1/8 of an inch down another 1/8 of an inch. We can absolutely do that. However, let's reset this and go back to our V carve. Our V angle cut, that V angle cut, is starting from the top of our board all the way down to the bottom of our board. Let's get this, let it preview these two toolpaths. Okay, so case in point, let's look at the Y here, or the R, or any of these. Our top text is not just cutting from 0 to 1/8 of an inch. It's cutting from 0 all the way down to that 1/4 of an inch. But that lower half is being created by that bottom text layer. So we have to start the bottom text from 0 as well as it comes down to create that nice clean V cut from the top of our board all the way down to our total depth of cut. So we have to start with a 0 start depth for both of the tool paths. Is it going to ghost it? No, no. It's going to, it's not going to. It's going to ghost in these areas, where there's no text and stuff on that pocket. But here, it's going to be carving all the letters from the top to the bottom. All right. But where those letters are not in that area, if we look at our bottom text pocket cut, okay, in those general areas here, just only not around the borders, because of course those are starting all the way down too, but down when we get into the lower levels of that toolpath and inside these vectors and things, or these areas, then yeah, it's going to be ghosting till it gets down to that area, but at some point in time it's making contact with something and we want it to come straight down. So unfortunately, no. Here's what it would look like if I started from 1/4 of an inch down. And let's see what we get. Are you ready? All right. On that bottom text, we're going to start with start at 1/8 of an inch. And we're going to carve to another 1/8 of an inch. We're going to recalculate this faux toolpath, this fake toolpath. All right, let's reset our preview here, and let's preview the visible toolpaths. Okay. All right, look what happened to my letters and everything. We would not want this coming off the CNC looking like that. All right. Okay, so we start from the top. So once again, from 0 to 1/4 of an inch. And calculate. Let's reset the preview and preview all the toolpaths one last time. All right, so okay, next question then. When setting up like that, when I put the V-bit in, I can run the top V-bit and then run the bottom V-bit for change. Absolutely. We haven't gotten that far. You're getting ahead of me, Dennis. All right. So what Dennis's next question was is if can I run the V-bit, all the two V-bit tool pass at the same time and then all the pockets? Absolutely. When we save these, of course now guys and girls, when you save these, important how you order these, okay? So we want top on top of bottom. You know, we don't want bottom on top of top, or it'll try to cut from the bottom up. So let's move that up in our list. Our top pocket and our top text, okay? Then bottom pocket, bottom text. We always do our pockets first. But when I'm saving this toolpath, I want to output all visible toolpaths to one file, and I want to check off my 2 pocket cuts. I can run those both at the same time with that 1/4 inch bit. Okay? We're going to save that toolpath. Then I would save my 2 V-bit toolpaths. Okay? And we only have 1 bit change. We start off with the 1/8 inch end mill, carve all of the 1/8 inch end mill stuff, and then we change to the V-bit and carve all the V-bit stuff. So you're only running 2 toolpaths. You're only running 2 files. Okay? You save anytime they use the same bit, you save those together as 1 file to run them, especially with this. Okay? All right, you would not run 4 separate files. All right, so now associating with a toolpath, what is the benefit? What's one of the benefits to associate with a toolpath? Well, one of the benefits is let's say that I wanted to change things up real quick. So if I come back in and turn off my layers here, I'm going to make those changes in my original layer. And let's say in my original layer, let's come back over to the drawing side. And let's say that I open up my text tool and let's take this text here. Let's stretch it out a bit. Stretch it out a bit. While I have this text open, I'm going to clear up some of the spacing on a couple of things. My line spacing, let's bring them a little bit closer while it's still text. Alright, now I want to edit the spacing. Hold down my shift key to turn that direction. Change that out. Space that out a little bit. Alright, home is where the heart is. I'm going to come in and my top text layer, I'm going to take that layer. Let me get out of my text tool there. I'm going to delete that. In my bottom text layer, I'm going to delete that. Go back to my original, my border, and home. I'm going to right click and make a copy to that bottom text layer. My border, And my top text, I'm going to right click and I'm going to make a copy of that to that top text layer. Turn my original layer off. Make sure all my spelling is correct. That looks good. I'll leave it like that. Come in here. Convert to curves. Offset. Nothing's changed as far as the numbers and everything. I'm going to offset that inward. 0.0722. It's defaulted to that. That's what I did last time. Deleting the original. Click offset. I'm going to come in here. And now I'm going to take my top text and copy it to that bottom text layer. And I'm going to take my group here. Let's make my home. Oops, home. Let's group it back together. And let's weld these two. These are just a little bit faster of the same steps we just did. Weld those two. Oops, I can't weld text. Bear with me a second. We got to go into this and we got to convert it to curves. Group it together. You can't weld text. So now let's weld those together. Alright, so we got our top text and bottom text. Turn those two layers on. Now all I have to do is come over here and hit the calculator to recalculate all the toolpaths. And before I do that, let me delete these two pocket examples that I did with you guys a moment ago to show you why, you know, the pocket cuts. Delete those. Alright, so let's just hit the calculator and recalculate all the toolpaths. Okay. And now I can preview those toolpaths. And because those toolpaths are associated, with the layers, then it's going to carve what's on those layers. Home is where. Where is the heart is? I gotta learn how to spell. Alright, so let's take a quick second and let's go back into our original layer. Let's go back into our 2D view. Where is the heart is? That was incorrect spelling, of course. Let's go into our bottom text layer and let's delete that. Let's delete this. We're going to make the change in our original layer. Okay? We're going to make the change in our original layer. Let's go back into our text tool. Alright, home is where the heart is. Alright, so let's, do I want is in front of where? Yeah, let's put that all on one line. Is where the heart is. And click apply. Alright, I'm going to double click on this and let's stretch it out a little bit. Holding my shift key. Let's stretch it out a little bit. Bring it down a little. I like mine a little low. Alright, one more time while we're in here, we're going to select our top text and our border and we're going to make a copy of that to the top text layer. We're going to make a copy of our border and our bottom text. We're going to right click and we're going to make a copy of that to our bottom text layer. Since there's nothing really to edit on the top text except for the spacing of the R and the T, before I convert it to curves, I will edit that spacing. And I am going to make that change in my original layer as well. Three clicks to the lady. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Alright, I always try to keep my original layer up to date. Okay, so we've got that corrected. The bottom text. Let's offset that real quick. Select, offset, delete the original. Bam. On the top text, I'll just turn that layer on and make a copy of that to that bottom text layer. Okay. I'm going to convert that text to a curve. Oops, see what I did there? I had the wrong layer active. Let's turn that top text off. One more time. We're going to convert it to a curve. We're going to group it together. We're going to select and group that. Come on now, Laney. We're going to group that together. We need to have two separate groups. Our bottom words or object, let's call it an object now, it's no longer text. And our top object. We're going to weld those two items together. And then we're going to turn that layer on. As long as those layers are on, I can recalculate those toolpaths by clicking on this little calculator here. They can successfully recalculate, and now we can reset our preview and preview those visible toolpaths. So, that is one of the main advantages to being able to associate with a layer. Okay, being able to make changes in those layers and then just recalculate the toolpaths very quickly and easily. Okay? Alright. Home is where the heart is. Alright. Once again, if we were saving these toolpaths, we would save the two pocket toolpaths, the 2 bits first, making sure that output those visible toolpaths to one file. We would give it a different name, I'll, do it my normal way, 01. This is 13.75 by 8.75. Home underscore 0.125 end mill. How you name your toolpaths is up to you, but I name my toolpaths where I know this is the first toolpath that I'm running. I need a 13 3/4 by 8 3/4 board. I can even take a little step further by 0.75 inches thick. It's my home design with an 1/8 inch end mill is what I'm going to be cutting it with. Uncheck the 2 pocket toolpaths. Check off the 2 V-carve toolpaths and save those. This is going to be number 202. 13.75 by 18.75. Not 18. 8 goofball. 8.75 by 3/4. And we're going to be using a 60-degree V-bit for this. So this tells me everything I need to know. My second toolpath I'm running for this job with this size material, and my 60-degree V-bit is the router that I'm going to be using for this cut. Okay. Alright. I'm going to get off of the text on text. Let's see what we have as far as any additional questions. Alright. Any additional questions before we move on? I don't want to drag off on one. I don't want to get stuck on one subject. We got 2 other light subjects to follow. Now here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. It's different species of wood. Okay? Different species of wood. If I want my top text to be in maple and my bottom text to be in walnut, then when I glue my board together, I need to make sure that let's say my maple, my top part of my board, that's what I want that text to be. I'm cutting 1/8 of an inch deep. Okay? So that's how thin that layer of maple would be. 1/8 of an inch deep. Alright? The rest of my material would be 1/4 of an inch or 5/8 of an inch, walnut. But if I want that top letter, that top text to be in maple, then I would be making sure that my maple layer was 1/8 of an inch. if I was carving in, 3/16 of an inch, tall letters, and I wanted my top text to be in maple at 3/16 of an inch, that's how thick my layer needs to be when I glue up my panel, when I glue up my board. I'm going to have a board of walnut followed by a board of maple. Alright? Glued together. That way when it mills down and cuts to that 1/8 of an inch, you might want to make your depth of cut, like 0.1255 or something, and everything. That way you're getting down to that walnut, and all that maple is going to get milled away, so your bottom text is in walnut. You want to make sure that all your glue and all that, you want all that milled away. So if you're going to do an 1/8 inch layer of maple glued on top of your 5/8 inch walnut board, you're going to do a text on text design, then you need to make sure that when you mill this first top layer, that you're going to get down to that walnut, that you're going to get down to that walnut. Do you guys and girls understand? Woodworking, Dennis. So a 1/2 inch walnut, then an 1/8 inch maple, and then an 1/8 inch walnut would look good. So alright, so you're just basically sandwiching an 1/8 of an inch of maple in the middle of your walnut board. So your top text would be walnut, and the top, that bottom layer would be maple, and then your bottom rest of your wood would be walnut. Is that what you're saying? That's another way of looking at it, Dennis. Yeah, you could do that for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So do y'all understand that as woodworkers, gluing up those boards and things, that if you want your top text, we know it's going to be an 1/8 of an inch deep, so we just want to glue on that 1/8 of an inch layer of material. Or like Dennis just suggested, sandwich that 1/8 of an inch in. Now, Dennis, you're kind of a little bit backwards. 1/8 inch walnut, 1/8 inch maple, then 1/2 inch walnut. Because if you did 1/2 inch walnut at the top, well, you're only cutting, your total depth of cut is only 1/4 of an inch deep. You wouldn't even get through all that walnut. So 1/8 inch, and then your 1/2 inch walnut at the bottom. Home would be maple, border, and where the heart is would be walnut. Yes, and then and of course on the side of the board you would see that that maple strip, that accent line, Let's see here, Dennis. The home would be maple. Yes. Yep. The home would be maple. Yep. Yep. You're exactly right. If any of you guys ever decide to do that, post that in the Facebook group so other people can see your example. If I ever get a chance to get out in the shop and carve that, I'll give it a try and show you some different examples of that. But this is text on text, ladies and gentlemen. This is text on text. All right. Now on your bottom text, guys and girls, that would look good. That would look good. I'm thinking about it, but yes, that would look good. All right, so let's get off of text on text. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to save this. Always save your designs. You never know. You know, save as. Home tot. Text on text. Home tot. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start a new design. It's going to be a single-sided job. This design is going to be a little bit longer and a little bit bigger, so we're going to go with 26 inches in length, and we're going to go almost 9.5 inches wide, and we're going to go a quarter. Let's go a quarter of an inch thick. Click OK. Now, someone had asked, Angie, I don't even know if she's in the class tonight. Hopefully she is. Let's pop over to the Facebook group, see if anybody's making any comments here in the Facebook group. Let's see what we've got here in the Facebook video group. If anybody was not able to join us on YouTube, let's see if anybody has been commenting in the Facebook group, so stand by. I do have a one comment. Let's see what we've got going on here. I think you might have meant types. I did mean types, Dennis, on my misspelling there. Yes. Ralph Bolanos. Are you in the class tonight? Ralph Bolanos. Calling a Ralph Bolanos. You're going to get buffering. You guys are going to get buffering for a second. Ralph, are you in the class tonight? Give me a call if you are. Give me a call after the class and I'll explain to you about that TNG question you have. No, it's not going to be in the grid. Okay. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this time Angie had asked about cutting out words or letters or sentences or things, cutting those out, you know, to create, you know, signs and things. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to import a vector from a file. I'm going to import a vector from a file. Now that vector file that I just imported is huge. It's about 90, let's see how tall it is. 91 inches, no 100 inches. So I want to group that together. G for group. Not, haha, ha ha ha. Undo, Control Z. G for group, not H for horizontal flip. G for group, and then I want to go into my size tool and I want to size this down to under 9 inches, so let's go 8 inches tall. And then I'm going to center that onto my material with the alignment tool under transform objects, align to material center. And I'm spelling this out because we do have some new guys and girls in here, you know, that you know, may need to, you know, may have questions and all, so where these tools are. Alright, so whether I was cutting out monogram, a singular monogram, or if I was cutting out a word, let's see if we can create a decorative word. And let's see here, I want to use my marketing script. Okay, my marketing script is not on this computer, so you guys and girls are going to get a quick glimpse at how to add a font to Vectic VCarve Pro. We're going to open up a web browser. We're going to go to www.dafont.com. search the term marketing for that marketing script, and I'm going to download that. Once it's downloaded, I'm going to open up that file. That file is a zip file and it needs to be extracted, so I'm going to extract that file. And then on my TrueType fonts, the marketing script has given me 3 fonts. One of my favorites is the shadow font to VCarve. But I want to go in and I want to right click on these 3 fonts. And I want to click install. I have to pause for a moment and hold my breath because my right click sometimes gets stuck. Alright, so we're going to let that install. Alright, my next font. The inline font I haven't used that much, but the shadow font I like a lot, especially on a painted sign. I'm going to install that one. Alright. Now I'm going to come in and see how that font looks. That's how it would look if it's carved. You know, all the black areas are what's get carved away, and then of course the black outline of the text. It's pretty cool. Like almost like a drop shadow carving. Alright. So once those are installed, I can return back to my Vectic software and close my text box and reopen that text box. And I can now go in and use my marketing font. Let's go with 4-inch. I want 5. I want big. I want 8-inch tall text. Bam. All right, let's take the H for a minute. Let's look at love. I'm going to put them on both on different layers so I can keep them on the same board, but let me center love on the material first. All right. All right. Okay. Now, if I were carving this out, the profile cut of this, then of course my letters, you know, my letters would be, you know, I'd have to hang them on the wall individually, except for the L and the O. Those would cut out together after I welded them together. Well, I can come in, and if I want to, you know, I'm going to convert these to a curve. I'm not going to edit the text and spacing because it's much quicker for me to come in and move these letters over where I want them. All I want is a little bit of an overlap. And now I can take these in overlapping items. By holding down my shift key, I can select all of the overlapping vectors and weld them together as one. Alright. Now this is going to be a profile cut. Okay. We're going to use the profile toolpath. I want to cut all the way through my 1/4-inch material. I'm going to use a 1/4-inch end mill or an 1/8 of an inch, and I'll use an 1/8 of an inch, but 1/4 inch is fine. We'll use an 1/8 of an inch. And I want to be on the outside of the line. Now the software is smart enough to know that I have inside vectors here on the E, the L, okay? So we'll automatically reverse those toolpaths. So you do not have to do a separate toolpath for outside and one for inside and all that. So you just choose outside right, and let's calculate this toolpath. Now if we look at this toolpath in the 2D view, let's turn on our solid mode here. you can see on the outside of the line, we are cutting on the outside of the vector, but on the inside, it's reversed that toolpath to cut on the inside of that L, on the inside of that E. Okay? All right, let's preview this cut. Now, of course, I did not add tabs. We're going to go back and add tabs, but I wanted to preview this selected toolpath without tabs, just so I could double click on these waste areas here and show, you know, cutting out words. Very, very simple, very basic. Angie, if you are in the classroom or watching this video, let me know if there's anything more involved when you ask the question about showing a tutorial on cutting out words. Let me know if there's something more involved that you're referring to. Okay? It's pretty straightforward. Okay? And then if so, then we can create a whole separate class for that. Now, yeah, Dennis, the buffering picked up because I pulled over a screen from my other browser, my other computer screen, so it took a minute. Because I was on the World Wide Web searching for fonts. All right, so, you know, basically, you know, we're carving out. Now, with the H, the reason why, and I'm going to put this on a new layer, okay, I'm going to turn off this layer, and I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this H monogram. And I'm going to take my H here and I'm going to move it to that new layer. Move, not copy, move. That way I can turn off my layer and just have that H monogram there. Now with this monogram, we can get creative with a couple of things here. So let's take a look at what we would do. So I'm going to go ahead and align this to the center of my material. And we're going to come in and write some additional text here. I'm going to use that same marketing script, or, you know, maybe not, but let's see here. Let's see here. What's a good H last name? Hendersons. Harry and the Hendersons. Alright, this text is going to be 1 inch tall. For this, I'm not going to use a script font. I'm going to use a block font. Let's go with our news. Bold. Yeah. Yeah, I like that better. Alright. Now I'm going to go ahead and center this up. I'm going to center this up on my board, which would ultimately center it up on my, you know, my monogram here. And of course, I didn't have to pull in that DXF file for the H. I just happen to have these Vine monograms that, you know, I like using, so it's easier to do. Not easier to do, but I mean, it's I like them because they're already oh gosh, I'm getting stumped here. They're already Vine monograms. I don't have to create all the swirls and things. Now, I have seen monograms with door hangers where, you know, these are just, you know, kind of cut out like this. But we've got to create our kind of our boundary around and stuff. If I was doing a text on text with, and it had a backer board behind it, I could do that text on text with that monogram just like that. But we're cutting these letters out. We're still talking about the topic of cutting the letters out. So we need to create our border, boundary, whatever it may be. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to offset that boundary outward by 1.25 inches. Inch and a quarter is a little beefy. I want this to kind of be a little bit lighter, so let's offset that out by 3/4. I don't want it to be so beefy. There we go. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ungroup the H here. Oh, darn it. Make sure you guys and girls are working in the appropriate layers. So let's turn that H back on and make that layer active so when you work in it and you start editing, things don't pop up on you. One more time, we're going to ungroup that H. Look at there, I did it again. Let's see which one's on what layer. Love is on that layer. Harry and the Hendersons is on that layer. Bum 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 bum. Alright, we're going to move some things around. We're going to put this on, we're going to move this to a new layer. We're going to call this Love. We're going to click, we don't want to make it visible. We're going to click Apply so it turns off. We're going to turn our monogram back on. Let's size this down so it fits appropriately. On my little 9.5 inch board. Alright. Now, if I wanted to cut these words out like this, of course, S-O-N-S-H-E and H and E, the N would hang on. All those letters would fall out. Crash. Okay? We have to make them part of the design. We have to make them part of the design. So what we need to do is we're going to create a rectangle. We're going to center that rectangle up on our material. Make sure it's centered. There we go. We're going to offset that out 1/4 inch. Offset, creating sharp corners. It really doesn't matter. They're going to get cut off anyway. Outward 1/4 inch. Okay. No. Let's go 1/8 inch or a little smaller, something. Let's offset that out. Let's offset it inward 1/4 inch. That's good enough. Alright, let's take this. You're going to see me mess around with a couple things. I want to make this bigger, holding my shift key down while I double click on that rectangle, ladies and gentlemen. I want to come in and I'm going to make it bigger. I want to grab it and stretch it. I just want it to barely overlap the tops of the letters, okay? I want that rectangle to barely overlap the top of the letters. I want to grab this side, holding my shift key down. I want to stretch it out to where it barely passes by here. Okay? Alright. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do some trimming now. We're going to come in here and I need to first, before I can trim, I need to take my H and ungroup it. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab this line here and here. Trimming away these 4 boundaries to tie in the letter H with the rest of my ring here. Okay. Now, we are going to take Henderson's. We're going to convert it to curves and we're going to automatically group it back together. We are going to take Henderson's and we want to make sure that we clear the inside of our boundary, meaning I want to kind of create this outline of Henderson's with this rectangle right here. If I select this rectangle first, hold my shift key down and select Henderson's last. Henderson's being last is now the boundary. And if I go to clear, and my trim tool, the little candy cane looking barber pole tool, if I go to remove or clear inside of the boundary, what you will see is, if you look at the pink very closely, is that my lines have now been traced around that boundary letters. Okay? Meaning that if I come back in here and select Henderson's and delete it, it's still there. Okay? Notice that the tops here did not remove, right? So I'm going to undo that delete. We're going to undo that. And the reason why it didn't remove is because my bottom line was not overlapping the bottom of the letters on that H and E. So I'm going to fix that now by pulling that up just a tad bit more. Not much. Let's zoom into that and let's see what we're getting here. I don't want a whole byte of an overlap, just a little bit. And let's make sure it's overlapping all of the letters. It is now. Wonderful. One more time for the record. Henderson's. Sorry. Rectangle first. Henderson's last. Trim tool. Clear inside of the boundary. When it clears, select in white space and click on your text and delete the text out, and you will have your cuts here. With our scissor tool now, we can start to blend in to our outside ring. Trim away this line and this line, that line, to open up that highway for that router. Open up that highway. Now we've got to connect these things, all these overlapping lines, right? So we're going to come in here, we're going to trim that line away. We're going to trim that line away. We're going to trim that line away. Going to trim away all of these areas here. All of the, oops, not that vector. All of these vectors here. Everything to do with my H, all the little lines. Get into it. We're almost home free. Open up that highway. Boom. One more little, not one more, but a few more little lines. Get rid of that one. Get rid of that one and get rid of these overlaps. Make sure, oh, not that one. Let's zoom in a little bit tighter. Oh, all right. So when it does not want to cooperate, that's because the lines are not touching one another. We're going to take a little node editing side view, and we're going to grab these nodes. On this line here. And I'm going to just move them over. Let's see, let's grab a couple of more. Just gonna bump them over where we have a little bit of a, not that much, let's go back a little. Micro movement back. Just have a little bit of overlap. Okay? Now I can come in with my scissor tool and I can trim away this line and I can trim away this overlap. Let's zoom in tight. Let's make sure that everything is good and hunky-dory. It is. Now that's a little tight. I don't want, you know, my router bit is not going to be able to get up in there. You know, it's ridiculous. So I'm going to go into node editing mode and we're going to delete some points. Okay. All right. So now let's look at what we've created here. So if we go over and create the tool path on this, this is going to be a profile cut once again. We're going to be cutting through our 1/4 inch material with an 1/8 inch end mill. We're going to be on the outside of the line, knowing that it will cut on the inside as well for these inside vectors. We want to be, it'll automatically reverse that. Now, of course, we want to add tabs, ladies and gentlemen. Now, don't misunderstand. When I'm showing you this, I'm not adding tabs when I calculate this tool path. But we want to add tabs. So after I calculate this, I'm going to come back and show you how to add tabs. So we're going to calculate. First of all, select your design. Then hit calculate. Laney. All right. There's going to be 2 open vectors identified. Let's see what those are. Let's hit cancel. Let's see where I messed up here. Select all open vectors. All right here. And where it is that overlap right there. Okay? So let's take our scissor tool. Actually, it's not even overlapping. That's why it did not trim. That's why it's open. So what we're going to do is, with that selected, I'm going to choose this tool, join or close, by moving the endpoints to a common point. Okay? Once it does that, it's going to create this long funky line, this overlap line. Now I can take my scissor tool and trim. Oh, don't trim that. There we go. Couple of trim and close, trim and close. Now I got a little speck right there. If you can't see it, that little speck right there, we got to delete it out of there. Were you able to see that speck, guys and girls? All right, now Control Z is our friend. Undo is absolutely our friend. Now if I right click and select all open vectors, I should have no open vectors in my design, meaning I did good. I'm going to group that back together just so it's all grouped. And we're going to come in and we're going to calculate this toolpath. We're going to reset that preview and we're going to preview that selected toolpath. Let's get rid of our waste areas here. Alright, now the word Henderson's, notice that the word Henderson's is a little less to be desired, right? Because that 1/8 inch bit could not get into all of those areas. Could not get into all those areas to cut that out, you know, cleanly. So let's take a look at what this would look like if we were to calculate it with a smaller diameter bit. What this would tell me is that I need to make my design, if I calculate this with a 1/16 inch end mill, which my 1/16 inch end mill can cut through up to 1/2 inch. So I am working with 1/4 inch material, so I have plenty of bit to cut with on my 16th inch end mill. But if we calculate this and we preview that selected tool path, that 16th inch end mill can get in there much clearer and clean that up much better. Okay? But let's say I don't have a 16th inch end mill. All I have is an 1/8 inch end mill. Well, then I would offset my design by that 1/16 of an inch. So let's undo this. Let's undo this toolpath. Not undo it, but let's change it back to an 1/8 of an inch end mill. All right. Let's come in here and let's offset this outward. 0.0625, a 1/16 of an inch, but let's go 0.063. Just give ourselves a little, whatever, little 10,000ths of an inch. Want to delete the original. I've got sharp corners in there, so I want to create sharp corners. I'm going to offset that outward. Okay. Now, inward, not outward, inward. Let's undo that. Undo is our friend. All right. Notice how that no longer looks like the word Henderson's. That font would not be able to be used for this method, so we would have to use a smaller bit. We would have to use a smaller bit, unfortunately. Yep, we would have to use a smaller bit. That method will not work. We would have to use a smaller bit to get that to cut out properly. A 16th inch end mill. Or just make your design bigger before you do all your trimming and everything, making sure that that bit can fit into those areas. Yep. Thought I was going to show you something nifty, but I made my design. My design's only 9 inches tall, 8 inches tall, so it works better when you're working with an 18 inch or something. All right, let's take a break for a minute and see where we're at with questions. Alan Feldman, how would you make the text convex? Convex or concave? How would you make the text convex or concave? Alan Feldman, you would have a spire. You would have a spire. Now, unless you curve it, unless you're talking about... Hold on now, Alan. Let's back up there for a minute. Let's back up there for a minute. Let's create a new layer here. Add a new layer. Let's turn off these other layers for a moment. And let's create some text. Now, if you're talking about Johnson's, let's go with 2 inches tall. Okay. Alan, if you're talking about convex, when you say convex, if I edit my text spacing and curve, if you're talking about curving the text, convex or concave, curving the text, is that what you were referring to, Alan? You would not need a spire for that. I thought you meant the top of the letters being convex or concave. Rounder at top. When you say rounder at the top, no. Wanted fat text. You wanted fat text. Alright, so let's make, okay. So let's offset this text outward by 1/16 of an inch, and no sharp corners, offset. Oops. Let's select our, there you go. Okay. Now let's do that, and let's delete the original so you can actually see it. Delete the original. Where you want it more rounded, radiused. Is that what you're referring to? Where you want the letters radiused? Yes, yeah, you would use the create shape tool. So let's pop over to Aspire if you're wanting it to be dome like that. I think we covered that in the last week's class. Let's go into Aspire so we can make sure we're on the same page here. Alright, if I open up my text tool in Aspire and I create my text Johnson's, and we'll use my news font that I was using earlier with the word Johnson's, News BT. Let's make it 1.5 inches tall. Alright. If I take in my modeling tools in Aspire, I have the create shape tool. From that create shape tool, I can do a curved profile. If I want this curved profile, I'm going to go with a curved profile, and I'm going to go with a 60-degree angle. And the base height, let's go with a 1/4 inch base height, and no limit, and click apply. If I look at 3D view, that creates the text with a curved top, concave top. Is that what you were referring to, Alan? The 3D look. Now, 60 degrees is a little bit too overbearing for me, so I would go with a 30 degree. Let's click apply and let's dome that down. Okay, so it has a nice little pillow top look to it. You know, a nice little curve. Pillow top look to it. A little 30-degree angle. If you want to see what 45 degree looks like, let's go 45 and click apply. A little bit more of a pillow top curve. Okay, that is Aspire, Alan. That is Aspire. Okay, that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. Now, let's say that I wanted rounded over edges. If you guys and girls do have Aspire and you're creating a model of that curved text, let's say I wanted my edges to be rounded over to look like a 90-degree round over, not a 90-degree, but a round over, 1/8 inch round over went around it. Then I'm going to do a full-on high 80-degree angle, base height of a 1/4, but I'm going to limit that height to 1/8 of an inch. Okay? I'm going to limit that height to 1/8 of an inch. If I click apply, let's build that down a little bit. Let's go with a 1/16. There we go. Let's go with, instead of an 80-degree angle, let's go with a 75. Bring that down a little bit and click apply. Back it off just a tad. Let's go higher, 90, full on 90. Click apply. There we go. Yeah. You know, that rounded over edge, you know, that's Aspire, guys and girls. That's Aspire. Allows you, Aspire has those 3D tools for creating shapes, 2-rail sweeps, sculpting tools, you know, creating vessels or turnings or spinnings, you know, so that is Aspire. And it would require a spire to do that, Alan. Okay. Alright. So back in our VCarve Pro, are there any, let's go back and let's answer our questions here. So Alan, rounder top. Should we start taking a shot every time he is on the wrong layer? Dennis, you're an instigator, man. You're the one that started the shot game for the begin with on the standby. All right, let's see here. I am just glad that we, even the experts, use the undo button as much as I do. Yes, Doug, I use the undo button a lot. So don't ever feel bad about that, buddy Ro. Undo, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, for what you new people, undo is Control Z. That's the shortcut code for Control Z. Control Z and Control Y. Best friends in the whole wide world. They're quick, you know, or you can also right click on your screen. You can come up here to edit, undo, or in your drawing tab, you've got the undo button there as well. So there's a lot of ways to undo things. Let's see here. I can honestly say I probably use it more. So Baron, Control Z is our friend. Let's see here. What is the smallest 1/4 inch shank end mill for straight cutting that you have found? A 64th. Never finished 2005B. A 64th. 1/4 inch shank. I'm sorry. You the smallest bit. 1/4 inch shank would be a 32nd. I own a 16th. I don't own the 32nd, but that's the smallest one. But with smaller shanks, 1/8 inch shanks and all, you know, we'll get down to about a 64th. You can get down to those really dentist kind of, you know, those dentist drill bit, or, you know, end mill type, you know, things. Bob Hill, upcut, downcut to reduce fuzzies. And spiral ramps for smoother edge when using plywood. Is that a question, or are you just letting someone know that, Bob? Is that a question? Bob Hill, is that a question, or were you letting someone know that about plywood? Alright, so let's see here. Would you use a ball nose bit to cut that? Yes, Dave, that would be that shape, that model of that Johnson's, you know, that we did in Aspire. Yes, that would be a ball nose end mill, because that is a 3D model that we just created when we created that shape of that text. You would use a ball nose end mill for that. Letting know. Thank you, Bob. All right, Never Finished 2005B. Give me your first name so I don't have to keep calling you Never Finished 2005B. Who makes them? Well, Amana Tools makes the 16th inch end mill. You can actually order it through us as well. It's not on our website, but we can order it in. If anybody wanted the, let's come over here and we might get some buffering because I'm going to go into the web browser. Okay. amanatools.com. Let's see if we get some buffering while we do this. You can also check out Bits and Bits. Bits and Bits. Bits and Bits. 46290, tool number 46290. Okay. Four 6290. This is Amana Tools 1/4 inch shank 16th inch diameter end mill. Okay. 16th inch diameter end mill, 1/4 inch shank. Right. Bits and Bits would have the 32nd. I don't think Amana, I'll have to look. I don't think Amana has a 32nd inch end mill. But this is the 16th. That's tool number 46290. And it is ZRN coated, meaning you can carve in all of these materials. Acrylic, aluminum, copper, brass, composite, corian. Oh my goodness, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay. See where that cursor's moving? Alright, bunch of material. Alright, let's move back to our Vectic software. Okay, my 1/16 inch bit will only cut a 1/4 inch deep. But good to know there's one out there that will cut deeper. Your 16th inch bit will only cut a 1/4 of an inch deep. The 16th of an inch is got a 5/16 inch, well, that Amana bit has a 5/16 inch cutting depth, which is just over a 1/4 of an inch. Just over a 1/4 of an inch. You won't find one that'll cut more than that. My 16, like a 1/4 of an inch, that's how thick our material is. That's the depth that we're cutting here with the monograms and profiles. So the 16th inch bit will cut them out. Wow, that one has a taper to it as well. Much better than one I have. When do you use a tapered ball nose opposed to straight? So the tapered ball nose allows us to get into the valleys of our 3D model cuts much deeper, much better than than a straight ball nose. So if let me grab a design here. Alrighty, let's make that a little bit bigger. Alright, when you work with models, it looks like a grayscale image and in your 2D view. Now, so you see these deep valleys in this 3D model here. Okay? These deep valleys and all. Well, with my straight bit, I would end up with doing these deep valleys. I would end up with tool marks in these higher areas and all, and the tapered ball nose eliminates and removes those tool marks, or the possibility of those tool marks. So the tapered ball nose allows that bit to get down into those valleys and everything, and it eliminates the tool marks that would be created by a straight bit. That's why you would use a tapered ball nose as opposed to a straight bit. Okay? It allows that bit to get deeper into those hills and valleys, those valleys, not hills, and it eliminates and removes the tool marks that would be caused by a straight bit if you were to do that same cut with a straight bit. That would be the difference. The antlers of a deer is a good spot, Debbie. Hold on a second. That's got to be Dennis. I don't know what that meant, but okay. The tapered ball nose allows you to get into those hills and valleys and eliminates the tool marks that would occur on the sidewalls of your design, these upper areas, as opposed to a straight bit. That would be caused by like a normal straight bit. Alrighty. Is there a straight ball nose as well? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can get ball nose in straight or tapered. Yes. Absolutely. Straight or tapered. All right. Let's see what our third subject was. We were talking about laser engraving. Laser engraving for the trifecta. Alright, let's go into and let's create. Let's delete this out. Alright, I'm going to open up some text tools here. I'm going to bring in a picture and do some tracing as well. It would help if I brought the picture in to trace it first so I knew what the text is going to say. I always do that backwards. Let's go into down, pictures, camera roll, clip art. What I got going on here, not that kind of clip art. I want colored clip art. Let's see what we got. Trying to find a design that would be representative of. Okay, let's do this snowflake here. Let's trace this snowflake for you ladies and gentlemen that have never traced an image before. We're going to open up the trace bitmap tool under the create vectors. I'm going to slide my bitmap fading. I'm going to slide that to none so I can see my image. I'm going to slide my slider bar till I get the best representation of my image. And I'm going to preview those trace lines. I'm going to click apply and close. Now, this is a very clean image, so there was not a lot of distortion in pixels. For you ladies and gentlemen that are just new to tracing images, that was not a fair demonstration because this is a very clean image. And it didn't really show very well on how you would trace an image. Alright, so let's talk laser engraving. Okay, laser engraving with the 6-watt laser. Let's talk laser engraving with our 90-watt laser. Let's talk laser engraving with our 60-watt laser. With our 60 and 90-watt laser, we'd be able to cut out this piece with our laser with our 1/4-inch material. We'd even be able to cut it out with a 90-watt laser with our up to half-inch material. With our 6-watt laser engraver, 6-watt laser engraver, you'd be able to cut this out of leather, paper, cardboard, foam, thin items. But that 6-watt laser is more of an engraver than a cutter. Now, when you're engraving, you're going to either be using the profile toolpath or the pocket toolpath. If we're going to be following the lines, then we're going to profile cut. If we're going to engrave and remove that fill area or burn in that fill area of our design, then we're going to use a pocket cut. Now in the video when you guys and girls set up your laser, you saw me talk about the quick engraving. Well, after working with it some, I found that the pocket toolpath and the profile toolpath provide much better results than the quick engraving. So the quick engraving is basically essentially an outline profile cut or a fill pocket cut kind of combined into one tool, but I found that these tools work better here. So if we took our design here and we profile cut this with our laser engraver, our cut depth would be 0 because we do not want the laser to move. But in order for you girls and guys to be able to see this in the preview, I have to give it a little bit of a cut depth so you can see it. For the tool, we're going to choose our laser tool. Now, if you haven't set up your laser tool should be set up as an end mill. 0.0197 diameter. 0.010 of an inch, 0.01 pass depth. Step over, I found about 48.2 works well. Your spindle speed is your power from 0 to 10. That's it. Do not forget to change your spindle speed. I have mine default set at 8. That's the power of the laser. Okay? That's what controls the power of the laser. For the feed rate, we're going to run 45 inches a minute, and for the plunge rate, 20. Now, of course, if you're going to go with faster feed rates and all, then you want more power. If you're going to go with slower feed rates, you want more power, whatever, you can get deeper cuts. So I said that wrong. For deeper cuts, you can go with a slower feed rate with a higher power. For shallower engravings, you go with a faster feed rate with a lower power. Okay? I'm going to be using 45 inches a minute with a power of 8. And if I calculate this toolpath, we want to be not on the outside right. Don't be a goofball. We want to be on the line. On the line. If I calculate this toolpath, we're basically engraving. Okay, that laser engraver. Let's give it a little bit of color so it looks like a laser engraving. Alright. Now, let's say that I wanted these lines a little bit more defined. Well then, I need to offset these lines to create multiple copies of it that my engraver is going to follow. So if I come over here and go offset, I'm going to go both directions by a very small amount. I'm going to create sharp corners. I want to offset. Okay, and if I undo that, I can select. Oh, I can't select new with both directions. Alright, that's good. So we'll offset that. Okay. And a little bit further now. A little bit further now. Oops. Dadgummit. One more time. 0.010 of an inch offset. 0.20 of an inch offset. Okay. Now, as I profile cut this with my laser, that beam, because of my step over and everything, and the size of my beam and all, I'm going to end up with more defined . Let's add a little color to that toolpath. I'm going to end up with wider lines. Let's get in and see if I can get... Let's change my preview quality, my simulation quality. It's already set there pretty high, so that's good. Preview that select toolpath. Alright. So I'm going to get wider lines by creating those offsets and engraving, those along those lines with that profile cut. Alright. So if you need a little bit more definition in your lines, you can offset those objects outward. Now, if we were to pocket cut this design, I'm going to undo my little offsets there. Your pocket cut is like your fill cut. So we're going to go again, 0.02. Again, this is only for preview purposes. Your cut depth would be 0. Your cut depth would be 0. If I calculate this, we're now Engraving, and let's add a little bit of color to this. You know, or laser engraving. Alright, so you're either going to be using the pocket cut, if you're going to be basically kind of engraving the fill area, or you're going to be using the profile toolpath if you're going to be carving the lines. If you're going to be carving the lines and you want those lines to be a little bit more defined, you're going to offset those lines to a distance to make sure that it doesn't exceed the diameter of that tool, which would be the beam. So if we have a tool that is set in our tool database at 0.0197, if I offset by 0.02 or 201 or whatever, then I'm going to have this little uncut area. If I want a nice clean out, like a little nice wide line, then I want to offset less than the diameter of my bit. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. Alright, the one thing that we need to make sure of, very, very important, with that laser, we need to make sure of, let's try that again, open that bad boy up and go into that laser tool. We need to make sure that that spindle speed, because that spindle speed is what controls the power of the laser. And when you're carving with your router, the spindle speed is, if you have a router, it's redundant because it's, you know, the speed is, the RPMs of that router is controlled by the dial on the router. But if you do have a spindle, for you ladies and gentlemen that have spindles with us, then your software controls that spindle speed. Well, when it comes to the laser tool, the spindle speed is the power. 0 to 10. Alright, 0 to 10. Now, if you're trying to set your X and Y 0 on your laser, you know, let's turn this sideways. Let's say I'm moving my laser over and I'm trying to set my X and Y 0. You want to set your speed in your TNG software to 0.1. 0.1. What I mean by that is, if we open up TNG, if I still have, and also the same applies to CNC USB controller, ladies and gentlemen. I just happen to be talking about TNG for a moment. Let that open. You're going to see a blackout screen for a minute. You're going to see a blackout screen. Alright, so down here in the MIDI box, M-I-D-I, MIDI, where we type in codes and everything, if we were trying to zero out our laser, X and Y, we would come down to the MIDI box and we would type in S for speed, S 0.1, and we would hit enter. Now, I'm not connected to my machine, but what that would do is that would convert that controller to a power of 1, meaning that when I manually turn on my spindle button, the laser beam will turn on, and it's going to be like a laser sight, like the laser sight of a gun. It will not be burning. As long as you have your spindle speed set to 0.1, that will be a laser beam, like a laser sight, not a burning. And you can go over and zero out that dot on your X and Y start position to start your carving. Very important. S.1, 0.1. Now, the question was posed, how high does my laser need to be from my material when it's carving? Well, 2 inches was the answer given, and that is correct. Now the question is it 2 inches from the bottom of the laser body to the top of the board? Or is it 2 inches from the body, the lens cap, down? 2 inches is from the body to the top of the board. If you guys and girls have a quick set tool, the DWC quick set tool, you can actually use that. Turn it upside down, or on its side, not upside down. It's 3 inches tall. It's just like a sensor. You can bring your laser down and it will stop automatically when it touches that touch block, that XY block. Then you can go into your software in that MIDI box in your TNG or USB controller, and you can type out the code. You would zero out your box first. Zero out your Z, I mean. And then you could type in the code G0 Z negative 1. Okay, let me put that in there. Alright, G0 Z1. What that'll do is, after you touch off with your digital woodcarver quick set, it'll stop automatically. Now you're going to be 3 inches above your board, because that's how tall that block is. Well, if I zero out my Z at that point, I'm 3 inches above. Now I can tell the program to move the Z axis down 1 inch. It'll move down. Now I'll be set at my 0. You know, I'll be 2 inches above, and I can re-zero out that Z axis. You understand what I mean? If you do not understand what I mean, let me know, and I will demonstrate it in a separate video at the machine, physically at the machine. But 2 inches is what you want. Okay? Two inches. Alright. So you're going to be either using a profile toolpath when you're following the line, pocket toolpath if you're going to be cleaning out the filled area. You know, you're going to make sure your laser is 2 inches from the top of your material. And when you're calculating your toolpath, you want to make sure that your cut depth is calculated at 0. We do not want that laser. We do not want that laser moving up and down during the cut. We want it to stay at 2 inches through the entire cut. Now, of course, because our home start position is typically set to 0.8, that's the first thing it's going to do. It's going to raise up to 0.8 from your 0 position, and then it's going to go back down and carve. So that little rise that you get at the beginning of the job is normal. Okay? When that machine starts, that router is going to raise up to 0.8 above 0, and then it's going to come back down to 0, and then it's going to turn on and start carving. Please let me know if you do not understand that, and I will do my best to try to explain it either one-on-one or something, you know, try to better explain it in here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 10 o'clock at night. We have went over, you know, basically laser engraving. There's not a lot to it. The only key thing is we want to make sure that our laser is set up properly. Make sure you create your setting file. Let's go back into that TNG. This would be the same for the CNC USB controller as well. Let's go back into that TNG. You're going to see a black screen. You're going to see a black screen while I open up my TNG. Alright, we want to make sure in our settings, if we come down to spindle, okay, we want to make sure our output pin speed is set to number 2. Output pin speed set to number 2. Our minimum should be 0. Our maximum should be 10. That's our power. Okay? And we want to make sure that use PWM is checked. This is the same setting whether you're using whether you're using CNC USB controller or the TNG controller software. Under the spindle or spindle and coolant, you want to go into output pin speed number 2. Make sure that's set for 2 with a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 10. The setting file that controls your router, your mill, your normal mill setting file, can be the same one that controls your laser. Those can be saved together if you have a router. If you have a spindle on your CNC, then you have to create 2 separate setting files. One for your spindle and one for your laser. They cannot be in the same file, the same setting file. Alright? Alright, ladies and gentlemen. Let's close out of that. I don't want this to be a TNG lesson. Alright. How high is the laser from your work area? 2 inches. We got that one, Wayne, already. Great class. Thank you, Doug. Good night. And Baron, understand but still want to get with you on why mine changed a little. Okay? Get with me tomorrow, Baron. I am open in the morning. Get with me tomorrow. Before 11. I do have an 11 o'clock appointment. Get with me before 11 or after 1 o'clock tomorrow. And we will take a look at that. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, if there's no other questions, we're going to call it a good night. Now, I will say that home is where the heart is sign. I'll kind of dress it up and send that file onto Facebook for you. I'll post it in the Facebook files if some of you want that. And home where our journey begins. I'll do that one as well. Those 2 signs, I will make those in separate files. And I will send those over to the Facebook file group for download and use. And I hope this was a helpful class. I hope this kind of showed something. Next week, let's look at working with models. Let's model some pistol grips. The design itself will be pistol grips, but the subject is going to be modeling. Okay? 3D modeling. Because in order to work with pistol grips, we have to work with modeling. That's going to be, not next week, I'm sorry. That's going to be Wednesday's class. Wednesday's class. Alright, everyone. Y'all have a great day. I want to thank you very much. Good night. And until Wednesday, happy carving. Debbie, if you're still in the group, I will send your label right after the class here. Yes, ma'am. It's coming right away.